had a lot of time to think about what I was doing. Mind you, like when the shooting happened, I was in the medical field. I had just started being a phlebotomist. I was working in the hospital and this and that. And I was trying to get on track, and then, this situation happened and it kind of just dropped me back a few notches, and here I am fighting for my survival. And that was like just fighting to survive my own mind.
How fast were you driving, and did he go over the vehicle or under?
um, Poor dude, I don't even know if he's alive right now, but
Oh,
Oh, damn.
I was probably going a good like I was definitely accelerating at the moment of impact.
yeah.
So he
Um,
got fucked up then.
yeah, I was probably going about 50. When I hit him, he was in the verge of diving out of the way when I hit him. So I think I like broke his hip and his ankle or something like that. And he was already up there in age anyway, so I'm sure that wasn't hard to do. But what I did do, because I was so out of it, like I just felt it was the right thing to do, is after I hit him, I made a U-turn and I came back and I kind of drove over him like with the car, and where his like upper body was kind of exposed by the grill area of my car. And I jumped out and I was hopping on one leg and I told him, I was like, I told you not to mess with me. Like, do you know who I am? Do you know who you just tried to take advantage of? Like I myself have always showed and expected the utmost respect. Like I've always showed everybody that I've crossed paths with the most respect, whether it's my mom's boyfriends, anybody. And I felt so disrespected, and I had to get that point across to him. At that moment, I had a mentality of how dare you, like how dare you try to do this to me, because I'm a big bad gang member. Like there's nobody could do that to me. And so, at that whole time that was happening, my mom was on the balcony yelling, the neighbors were on the balcony yelling, and there was probably like 40 witnesses. And I just remember looking back and I flipped everybody off and I got in my car and I just took off. And from the moment that I took off, I told myself nothing happened. Like I literally tricked my mind into thinking none of that just took place. And a month later, a detective called me while I was hiding out in San Bernardino at my kid's mom's house. A detective called me and he was like, "Hey, I'm calling about this report that you ran this dude over." And I was like, "You don't say." I said, "Well, that's kind of weird because I don't remember none of that happening." Like I told them, my mom and her husband like to party and they like to do, drink and pop pills. So I don't know what to tell you. And he was like, "All right, man." He's like, "Well, if you happen to remember anything or you want to talk to anybody about what happened," he's like, "just, call me back." And I said, "Yeah, you bet." And from that moment on, I literally in my mind thought everything was okay. Like I literally thought like, oh, they believe me. Like, but that wasn't the case. About a month later, it was like 5 in the morning, and I had my daughter Destiny in my arms sleeping. She was kind of like snuggled up on my shoulder area. I just had surgery to remove the external fixator from my leg. So at this point, I have like a cast and I have a boot. And I remember waking up like, dude, who turned on the lights? What the heck? And I look up and I'm focusing, and there's like straight up LAPD SWAT. They look like commandos in my room. Like
They
rifles at
got they got into your home while you were
yeah,
passed out? Oh,
yeah.
shit.
They did what they do and they caught me by surprise, and they were nice enough to watch me wake up and focus. And as I was looking to see who was in there, and I noticed they must have saw my face because they were telling me like, be quiet, like come here, like don't wake up your daughter. And sure enough, I got out of bed and they took me into custody, and I walk out and my in-laws are face down, my kids uncles were face down in the living room, and I'm still in disbelief, like they got the wrong guy, like what's going on here. And so it wasn't until they showed me the attempted murder warrant and the name that it had to do with that it really that sunk in. I kind of hung my head down, and And I didn't say too much, but I was just thinking to myself, like, well, this is where it ends, you know, this is now I'm dealing with karma, you know, now it's time to deal with what I've done. And I remember there was one of the detectives was a black girl, and she was telling me, like, what's up with you? Like, you have a trace of violence. And I could just kind of felt like I gave up, you know, like I was kind of like in a you got me attitude, like whatever, you know. And I told her, I said, you know what? I'm like, you guys don't have no idea what I've been through these last few months. I'm ready to give up, I told her. And she just kind of patted me on the back, and she's like, you know what? I hope that you get to iron everything out, and I wish the best for you. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Let's get the show on the road. Let's do this. So yeah, that started which ended up being my final run-in with the law. I ended up being sentenced for that case in 2005, and thankfully since then I haven't had no problems with the law. I that was really my life changing event, because not only, I mean, that particular event wasn't, but what came after that, while being in custody, I was facing like 22 years in prison for attempted murder. And again, I was at the point where I was ready, I was just giving up. So that came with, you know, inflicting violence upon inmates, people that I felt deserved to be beat up or whatever had to be done. And that's where I came in effect. And that's where I relieved my stress that I was going through. On my way back from court one day, I came back into the dorm. I was in the Supermax facility, and you know, I was just angry. Like, my points were high. I was not following any rules that I was supposed to be, and you know, I was hurting people. I came into the dorm, and as I walked in, like, I literally took maybe like 5 steps, and this black dude came, he rolled out from the bunk, and he stopped me. He's like, hey man, can I talk to you? I'm a Mexican gang member from California. Like, in the system, there's no speaking to other races. Like, obviously, you know, out of respect, excuse me, whatever. But as far as like a conversation, that's kind of like frowned upon, you know. So I kind of waved them off, like, nah, you don't got to talk to me about anything. And he was adamant. He was like, no, I need to talk to you. And I was like, what's up? And he's like, I have a message for you. And I'm like, okay, well, what is it? He's like, my message is that, you know, you've been through some things, and you're dealing with some things right now, and you're on the verge of giving up. He's like, but there's a bigger purpose for you. And my message is that you need to kind of follow what you have coming for you. Like, don't be defiant to God, because he'll pluck one of your kids to make you realize that he's the powerful one, and he's the one that has the plan for you, pretty much, you know. And when he was telling me that stuff, I was like, I was looking at him like, what the hell? And mind you, this man, he was probably like 75 years old, maybe like 5'5", fragile looking man, matty cornrows, gray ones, matty beard. Like, he just looked rough. Like, he was for sure homeless before he was incarcerated, you know. And I just remember looking at him, and the way he was talking to me was like deep. Like, he was not like breaking eye contact. And I just felt like he was the real deal. And I kind of like asked him a couple questions, like, how do you know this stuff? Like, and he told me, he's like, I'm a prophet from God, and this is the message for you. And now it's up to you to you know, take it for what it's worth. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I was literally in tears. And so now I'm like, somewhere or another, we kind of like broke, and he went his way and I went my way. And my way was like, I had to find out to make sure I wasn't in trouble, you know, for talking to this dude. And so I went and I talked to the homies, and I was like, hey, everything good? Like, did you guys see me talking to this guy? And they were like, nah, what are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, I was talking to this black dude. Like, you guys good? Like, nobody's, you know, there's no hits gonna come towards me or anything.
Yeah.
And I went to point out the dude, and I was like, yeah, it was that guy right there. And when I pointed out where he came out of, that bunk was like, there was nobody there. There was no mat, there was no belongings, there was nothing. And this dude legit vanished like after telling me that stuff. And that was my breaking point. That started my wheels turning towards a different way. Like I felt hope all of a sudden. I felt like it wasn't the end of the road for me. Like it was kind of like a new purpose that I had. And now my purpose and what I had to do was pray my heart out so I could get back outside and prove everybody wrong, you know, because at this point I felt like everybody that I was in contact with had no hope for me. Like everybody was just like like good luck, bro, you know. And I felt like after talking to that dude, I felt like, I'm not gonna say a superpower because that's kind of crazy, but I just felt like a new like hope, you know. In my heart, I felt like, dang, this isn't it. Like something told me that wasn't I wasn't destined to be in prison forever, you know. I wasn't destined for that life anymore.
What was your relationship with God before this?
I didn't really have one.
No.
I didn't. I was a little bit upset with him because I couldn't imagine, you know, Omar was the type of person that he would like, man, he would give me his last dollar if he had one, you know, like he was the good one of us two, you know, like he was the good dad, he was the good hard worker, he was the, you know, the breadwinner for his family, and I was none of those things. Like I took my kids for granted. I didn't spend time with them. My hood was more important. The streets were more important. I wasn't working at the time. At that moment, like I was feeling sorry for myself. Like I was just taking up space, you know, and that hurt me so much. The fact that he died, you know, I didn't feel like there anything can explain that. Like nothing can justify the fact that this good person passed away and that fashion, you know what I'm saying? Like not that, you know, an accident would have been better or anything like that, but just the way it happened, like he didn't deserve that, you know. And I've always lived with that, you know, and I've always lived also with the guilt that will all happen because of the tattoos I had on my arm. And that's, you know, sometimes I still fall in some little dark times and I start thinking a lot and I kind of beat myself up, but then I just think about like what I'm doing now, you know, what the motivation I bring to the table now for these kids, and I really feel that he would be proud of me for doing what I do. You know what I mean?
I
Absolutely.
bet you he would be. And let's go from you were 2005. You had this the conversation that changed your life. How much time are you still looking at once you started getting this hope? How much time was still in
I
front?
was in the early stages of the court process, so I was still looking at like 22 years.
Jesus.
Because and a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was a gang member. A lot of the violence that I had been, and then not to mention the fact that I had an open case in Riverside for a firearms violation that I threatened someone, you know, that I was going to take their life with it. And so like all that stuff against me, and mind you, I didn't even have a paid attorney. So all this stuff that was happening, like I really felt God was in the driver's seat. Like he was going to get me out of this rut, you know, and he did. I ended up getting out like maybe I had fought it for like 9 months and I got out like 9 months later. So I did a
Wow.
total almost, you know, 20 months. That alone was a miracle. You know, everybody that I came back and talked to, like, they were like, what? Like, what the hell? Like, you had a good lawyer? And I was like, nah, I had a public defender, but that public defender was like sent from God, man. Like, there's no other explanation about it. Like that I should probably be barely getting out of prison right now. But yeah, you know, God had a different plan for me. And I still wasn't too close to God, you know. I knew something was happening. I knew he was working some way, miraculous way, But the fight wasn't over. Like I got out from being in custody, and now I find myself with no job because of a violent crime. It went from attempted murder to assault with a deadly weapon with great bodily harm. So it still looked bad, you know, even though I wasn't in prison for the rest of my life, like I still had some pretty bad stuff on me. So I ended up being homeless for like 4 months. I had a car. I would live out of my car. I would spend the night with friends or wherever I could get in. But for like 4 or 5 months, I was just plotting on what my next move was gonna be, you know, and I was praying every night, like, God, help me out. Like I know you're there, and I'm trying to work. I'm trying to keep my end of the deal up, you know. I just need a little help still. And the next thing that happened, bro, was I reached out to a friend of mine. He's a lawyer in the La Puente area. Before getting incarcerated, I used to work with his wife. She was a physician assistant at the clinic that I worked at. I got a hold of him, and I asked him, like, how do I expunge this thing off of my record? And he's like, well, I could do it for you. You know, it's like $3,200. I'll take care of it, filing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait, I'm like, but I'm homeless. Like, I don't have that money. Like, I'm trying to do it myself because right now I have nothing but time. And sure enough, man, Mr. Quinones told me step by step how to do it. And I think I might have even took notes of what he was telling me. And I followed each step, which brought me to the courthouse where my case was out of. And I got the expungement packet. And since I was homeless, I qualified for a fee waiver, so I didn't pay for anything. But one part in the packet, it gives you a chance to explain how an expungement would be a positive, better you. And I spilled my heart out. It gives you like a little half a page to write, and I ended up attaching like 5 more pages to the packet. And I was telling this guy, like, just know that I'm not a piece of crap. You know, like I've been through some stuff. I tried with all my heart to be better, and here I am. And I just need this to be expunged. I need this to be in my favor because I need a job. Like I told them everything. I was like, I don't have family to depend on. I don't have a mom that I can be like, hey mom, can I have $3,000 to get back on my feet? Like my mom was starving herself, you know, and there was no room for me to reach out. And the only person I could reach out to was him. And because I did all that, like 2 months later, I received a letter from him from the Department of Justice, and he pretty much said that he's never read like a letter so sincere in his like 40 years on the bar or some crazy stuff. And because of that, he expunged my whole record.
That's amazing,
Awesome.
man. And now
Yeah.
I love your second half, like the chapter after you get released, because you got to, I mean, you worked for NASA.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like your paychecks had NASA on them. So I mean, how did you get interviewed by NASA? How was even the whole process of being
So,
interviewed?
man, talk about, I think that's where I got all this gray from, because it was so stressful. Because I thought like I was literally, I thought like I was the one dude that fell through the cracks, you know, like so the way that happened is after I was homeless and my record got expunged, I ended up working for a contractor for Time Warner. So I was like doing field installation, hooking up people's boxes, all that stuff. I did that for like about 9 months, and the company went out of business, and I couldn't really find a job. So I was going through like other contractors working like piecework. And because I hadn't worked in so long prior to that, um, I had child support backed up on me. So like I would work 6 days a week from like sun up to sundown, and my checks were sometimes like $20. Like it was just crazy because I was paying like my kids' insurance, back child support, current child support. Like it was just insane. And so I did that for like 8, 9 months. My girlfriend's mom at the time, um, she was like, man, she's like, you work a lot. And I was like, yeah, you know, my back's all hurting and all that. I'm like, yeah, I'm on my way to work right now. And she's like, well, maybe we could work on your resume, and I can maybe find you something at JPL, which is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. She was like an HR lead or something like that. And so yeah, I kind of just yeah, that sounds cool. And then like a couple months later, she was like, hey, let's work on your resume. And I was like, okay, cool. So we worked on my resume. She pretty much created my resume. And because mind you, my computer skills weren't really that good. And so she's like, okay, it looks like a cool resume. Let me just throw it out there and see who grabs it. She's like, this is the best I could do. She's like, now it's up to you and up to whoever picks you. And I was like, all right, cool. So I didn't really pay too much mind. And then like a month later, I get a phone call from a recruiter. And I'm like, hello. And they're like, oh, hi, this is so-and-so recruiter for, JPL, NASA, this and that. And I'm thinking like, what the heck? All right. And they're like, well, we stumbled upon your resume and we're looking for an entry-level data center technician. And we want to see if you want to interview. And I was like, yeah, of course. So I'm all excited. I'm like, come home. I'm like, babe, I have an interview with NASA at JPL. I never even knew where JPL was prior to that, And so I dig in my closet and I grab my court clothes that I had saved for a rainy day, and my collared shirt was a little short, so my tattoos were still showing, and I was kind of stressed about that. And so I go to my first interview and I meet with the dude Jim Chu from China. My immediate boss, he's from the Czech Republic, mean as ever. Another dude from Korea. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, what the heck am I doing in here? Like, this is crazy. And I kept it real with them. I was like, you know what? I'm an amazing worker when it comes to working with my hands. I said, but my strength isn't too much in computers. And they loved that. They were like, no problem. Like, we like you, thank you for meeting with us. We're going to talk to the recruiter, this and that. So I get home and like a half hour later, I get a phone call from the recruiter. And he's like, man, I don't know what you did to these guys, but they're really happy with you. Are you interested in a second interview? And I was like, heck yeah, mind you, I'm a freaking gang member. Like, I can't believe this is happening. And I had no interest in like space. Like, I really didn't care about none of that stuff. I was over here trying to survive. I'm all excited, bro. I'm like, dude, what the heck? Like, these guys really like me? Like, all right, let's do it. So I had an interview lined up. I had 4 panel interviews, and I was the only applicant out of 12 applicants that got the job.
Wow.
How many people were on the panel?
The first day was 3, and the second, third, and fourth panel were 4.
Holy
Jeez,
shit.
man.
Yeah.
Pressure.
It was, and not to mention, I had unmatching makeup covering this tattoo on my face. So it looked like I had a pale blotch on my face. My tattoos were showing like on my wrist area. And I spotted a couple of the guys a couple times looking down like at my tattoos. And so I'm thinking like, these guys are like, this guy's a clown. Like, what is he doing here? But I don't know if, I mean, again, I know for a fact that it was God taking the lead in this. And I was just doing the best I can to convince them that I was the best for this position, and it worked. So
That's
I
amazing.
yeah, I came home and I got another phone call from the recruiter, and now it was like talking about pay, and mind you, prior to that, I was working piecework for the cable company, which piecework, you're pretty much getting paid for what you do. So I was doing everything and anything under the sun, but my paychecks were like at $20 literally because of the deductions. I didn't really have an hourly pay. And so when the recruiter called me back and he's like, so what's your pay? Like what are you hoping to get paid? Like what's something, throw a number out. And I'm thinking to myself, like, shit, I don't know. How much do people get paid at NASA? Like, I don't know. I felt like, you know what? I remember someone telling me, like, don't ever tell an employer how much you really got paid at your prior job. Just bump it up a couple bucks. I just threw out $23 an hour. I'm like, well, I'm making $23 an hour right now. So, whatever you guys could do more than that. And he's like, okay. He's like, we're gonna start you off at $25 an hour. And I was thinking, like, what the? I've never gotten paid that much in my whole life. And I was like, shoot, where do I sign? They emailed me the offer letter. I signed it, sent it back. And here I go driving to JPL. I'm driving onto the Jet Propulsion Laboratory campus in Pasadena, and I'm looking at all these armed guards, and they're like, "Oh, how can we help you?" And I'm like, today's my first day at work." And you know what, man, that was the best job I ever had. It was just a trip to see these people look at me. Like, I worked for the space operation, the space flight operations facility. So it pretty much means that I was working in the center of the universe. And the reason why it's called the center of the universe is because the building that I worked at, all the data from all satellites in orbit, from all oceanography, submarines, whatever tools that are being used, no matter what part of the world it pertains to, it comes to that building first.
Oh,
So
wow.
they call it the center of the universe because from there, it gets all the data gets, washed up or whatever they do, and then they send it out to the pertaining countries. So Pasadena gets the first data, and from there, they send it to Russia, whatever, like China, Greece. Man, I've seen like the president of Spain, like it was crazy, and I'm watching the rovers land on Mars a couple years ago, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what the heck am I doing? And I don't even have a high school diploma. Like, I told them I did, and I acted like I did, but I didn't, and all those factors really solidified the fact that it wasn't up to me what I was doing. Like, there was someone that was guiding me through that, whether it's my guardian angels like my dad and my grandma and my brother, and whatever guardian angels are looking over me, like, they're doing the best job any guardian angel can do, because I found myself working for NASA for almost 9 years, and
So amazing.
a
Wow.
lot of people, like, on other podcast stuff that I do, I did this one for unfiltered stories on Facebook, and it has, like, I think, like, 1.7 million views and like 4,800 comments, and a lot of those comments are like, were you a janitor at NASA? Were you
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like, were you the dude that cleaned? And I was like, what's funny is that I always got that, but hell no, I wasn't. I got the President's Award, accomplishment awards. I was certified in all kinds of different stuff, and you know what? I ended up being able to get one of my good friends a job there. It took me like 4 years to get him in, and which changed his whole life. Like, him and his wife and his two little kids, like, their life has been changed, right? And now that I got laid off this past February because of, contractual issues because of COVID, and they're doing a bunch of cuts and this and that. Whatever the case is, I walked away feeling like I won. Not only did I change the whole perception of who can work for NASA and who can be in a data center and be a lead of a group of 5 dudes that are smarter than me. I don't know what to say, but I know for a fact that this all happened because I never gave up. And that's my message today. Like I say in other interviews that I've done, like, I don't drill these kids and tell them, like, do not be a gang member, because that's not up to me. Like, that a lot of times that runs deeper than someone just saying don't be this, you know what I mean? Like, they have family or their blood is in it or whatever the case is. But my message is, if you choose to go that route, be ready, because there's some rough times coming ahead, and unfortunately, our kids these days, mentally, they're not strong enough to go through traumatic experiences, and I know that for a fact because I have kids. I have kids that are in their teens and their 20s, and I see how easy they break, and a lot of that I feel has to do with, like, the stigma from social media and the level they have to be at in order to match, their classmates or whatever the case is. so what I'm trying to say is like the stress that our kids go through today has caused the suicide rates to be at the most highest level to date. Like the rates of 10-year-olds taking their own lives by hanging is at the highest ever. Like that's, to me, that's insane. You know, I was on the board with Congresswoman Grace Napolitano on her mental health board, and there was a doctor that was giving all these facts and all these statistics, and I just couldn't imagine, you know, because a lot of times these kids, they're really not depressed, they're really not sad, they're just maybe going through a lonely time, you know. And our kids, I feel, they think those lonely times and those trying times is the end of the world, therefore it's easy to just end it, you know. And my message is to these kids, like, hold up real quick, like don't throw in the towel just yet. Life is going to come at you with some amazing stuff as long as that positive mindset is there. Like with positivity and motivation and determination to be better, man, all those three factors can move mountains. The miraculous stuff that happens from having those that mindset is like, it's a little bit spooky, because sometimes it's so obvious that because you put something good in the universe, that comes back to you like 10 times better. And it's not till now in my life and at my age, which I'm 43 now, it's not until recently that I've really realized that, you know. And I kick myself in the butt because I'm like, man, I wish I would have realized this when I was a teen, because my life would have been so much better. And not to mention, you know, my life is as the best that it's ever been right now, and I'm grateful for that. But I just really believe that. I just really believe that, you know, just with the positive mindset alone, like, man, there's so many things that are on their way. Like there's so many blessings, there's so many amazing things that are on their way just because you have that mindset, you know. And that's my spiel, you know. That's what I tell these kids, and I'm so honored that recently, maybe in the last year, like people have been really listening, you know. And it's been opening up not only podcast interviews, and I just finished filming a 3-day documentary of my life called Food Heroes, and they followed me for 3 days, and they just saw what I was doing in the community, you know, from cutting up fruit in the neighborhood to serving breakfast for the homeless in Skid Row. Like and the reason I do that, and the reason I was so humbled and honored that this production team was following me to see that, is because my hopes is that other people see that and really take the initiative to do it themselves in their neighborhoods, because it doesn't take a lot to do to make a positive impact in your neighborhood. It just really takes that first step to move forward with your mission, you know. And it eventually evolves into something beautiful.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
man.
Even something as positive as just giving somebody a smile, holding the door open, that could set the whole tone for their day, and just change their whole momentum, their whole mind state for that day. It's just simple things like that.
For sure. I and you know what, my fiance, like just like being in the Starbucks line or whatever, and the cashier's like, hey, how are you? Like I really take that to heart, you know. And I'll spark up a conversation, you know. And I'm like, I'm doing pretty good, how about you? Oh, I'm all right. I said, well, you know what, you're doing pretty good from where I see it. Like you know, it could be in a lot worse places. And they
Yeah.
look at me and they kind of like realize, like, dang, this guy is telling the truth. Like they're
Yeah.
so bad, you know. And I say that with like the most best like intention. Like when I say that stuff, like,
You mean it.
yeah, I don't think they realize, like, they're probably like, after I leave their presence, they're probably like, dang, I wonder what that guy's been through. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and because I've been through that is why they feel that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why they feel when I tell them, I kind of make a little impact in their mind. Like, oh dang, that haven't heard that one before, you know? And that's my whole mission. Like that's why I do like my whole Pushing Fruits LA stuff. My whole mission behind that was to bring humanity to the streets, you know. Like sometimes I don't know how it is in Canada, but here we have a lot of street vending. So a lot of times these street vendors, we perceive them as robots, you know, like we don't really engage with them. We just pull up to them, hey, let me get 3 tacos. Okay, thank you. Boom. And there's no communication. So when I do my street vending and when I do, you know, my pushing fruit stuff, I make sure to talk to these people, you know, and I make sure to engage and I make sure to watch them as they're eating the fruit that I just chopped up for them and all that, because I could guarantee you, like, they haven't felt that from anybody else, because I sincerely feel like that's impactful, you know?
Yeah, 100%. What made you go into pushing fruit?
Um,
I love
so
the name.
Yeah.
Push to LA came because I used to sell drugs. You know, before working with JPL, I uh I had to find other ways to make money, you know, and that, unfortunately, my strength was trafficking. I never really did like the whole curbside drug selling, but I I would do it on a bigger scale. And you know, I stopped all that because I just felt like it was just a matter of time that, because of my greed, like it was gonna bite me in the butt. So I said, you know what? I'm done with all this. I'm gonna start selling something else that's legal. And I felt like having a fruit cart was the easiest and the most inexpensive way to serve people. And yeah, I bought my fruit cart, and I was thinking of a name, and I felt, you know what? I'm pushing fruit now. I'm not pushing dope no more. So,
And I
and
see you're collaborating with
That
other
is awesome, man.
restaurants. I think it was Hibachi restaurant. I think it
yeah,
was. Yeah. So I mean, it's like a little community that you guys are
yeah,
starting up down there.
yeah, for sure. I just did like a couple segments on the Spicy King show on YouTube, and I got to bring in like a couple of my friends that are also street vendors. Like I have a friend that he goes by the name of Cefiche, and his it's CEFISHE, and his specialty is fish ceviche. So fish ceviche is a Mexican or Latin dish where the fish and the shrimp are cooked with lemon juice, and then there's like they add, like, you know, different chopped tomato, onion, you know, garnishes like that, and you eat it with like a tostada or chips or something like that. So he's actually my friend Daryl. He's actually my first day that I was on the street selling fruit. I was in a bad spot. I didn't know. Like now that I look back then, which was like 4 years ago, I was on a main boulevard. There was no stopping, there was no parking, and I was just sitting there, like
Mhm.
hoping somebody would walk up and buy fruit, you know. And my first day on the street, I seen my friend Daryl pass by because he had this big old monster truck, and he ended up hitting me up on Instagram. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Today's my first day. I'm selling fruit on the streets." He's like, "Bro, come like literally 2 driveways over. There's a exotic dog show, and you're gonna sell out. I promise you." And I was like, "Oh shoot!" So I packed up my stuff real quick, and I hooked up my trailer, and I went 2 driveways over, and I ended up selling out all my fruit like in 3 hours.
Nice.
So that moment, I was just like, "This is what I'm doing. Like this is cool,"
I
you
saw
know?
the day in the life video of you getting up 7 a.m., cleaning the cart, going to the fruit
Yeah.
district, buying all the fresh fruit, doing all that stuff. Like, I mean, and one thing that really stuck with me in that video was because you were doing your own business and you wanted to give advice to the kids to tell them, you know, if you have an idea, if you want to start a business, don't wait. You're just wasting time, you know, go for it.
For sure. And you know what? And the only reason I said that is because that's exactly what I was doing, you know, and until the time that I actually bought my fruit cart, I thought like, man, it's been years since I've been saying I want to do this, I want to do that. And if I would have done it right when I decided that that's what I wanted to do, like who knows where pushing fruits would be today, you know. But I ended up doing it, you know, and I don't regret that decision. Like that was probably the best thing I ever did in my life, you know. And that's what I tell people, like whether it works out or not, like if you have a passion for something and you really can't stop thinking about doing that, then it's time to do that, you know. And again, don't waste time, because that we got that against us, you know. That's what we do have against us, is time. And the more time you waste, you know, that dream is just stagnant, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we go, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to? Anybody that you want to give their props?
Man, you know what? I want to give a shout out to everybody that's going through bad times, you know. I know there's so many people out there, and it gives me the chills, because I know for a fact right now during the holiday seasons, like even myself, I find myself waking up sad, you know. And I just want to shout out those people that are going through those hard times, because for one, you ain't the only one going through those hard times. Like there's others that are with you in the struggle, you know. And for two, you know, all bad times are temporary. You know, I like to say that to people that I speak with, because it's true. Like all bad times are temporary. Like the as long as you hunker down and weather the storm, like it's gonna pass you by, you know. So I want to shout those people out, you know, because I feel like some of those people that are going through it, or that are dealing with mental issues, or drug issues, or you know, or they're just sitting in a jail cell, like, you know, you're loved, you know, you're loved, and you're worth a lot, you know. And the world would not be the way it is without you. So just weather the storm and get through it. And I want to send a shout out to the city of Almani, where I'm from. We have a lot of good things coming. We have a few toy drives coming. My friends at Hood Raised Clothing, we have a toy drive coming in the city of East LA, December 10th. They're doing like free haircuts, free toys, free food, like just all kinds of stuff. My friends from the city of Almani, they're all my older homeboys from my neighborhood. We got a grassroots mission coming together, and December 18th, we're going to be having a huge toy drive in the city of Almani, where everybody is welcome. They're going to get, you know, the best toys that we could possibly get for them. Shout out to my boy Sefisha. He, like I said, he's one of my main supporters. Shout out to my mom. A lot of people ask me, like, man, you know, you kind of bash your mom a lot on these interviews, but you know what? I love my mom till the last day. She just recently moved out of state, and I miss her so much. And I realized that I took for granted the time she was down the street from me, you know. So I miss her a little bit more, you know, during this holiday season. And I want to shout out you guys, you know, for this invite, and for bearing with the story, and keeping your shoes warm on your side. And I know it's been a few minutes, so I want to thank you guys for listening to my story. And for everybody out there that's listening in, you know, keep it up, chest up, chin out, and let's do this.
George, you're a walking
Absolutely.
inspiration, man. So thanks for taking the time to talk to us and tell us the story. It's an
Thank you,
easy
guys.
listen, an easy listen.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys. And let me know where I can listen to it, because I don't you know, I don't really listen to the podcast interviews that I did, but today I had a pretty good time with you guys, and I want to listen back and hear what we were talking about. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll send you the Spotify link, or if you don't got Spotify, we're also on YouTube, Apple, Google. Pick one, and I can send you a link.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, let's do it, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much, George, for coming on tonight. And we appreciate every minute of your time, brother.
Thank you guys, man. You guys take care, and stay safe and stay warm.
Take care,
you
George.
Stay safe too, bro. Take care, my man.
Keep pushing that fruit, buddy.
Thank you. We'll see you guys
later.
Broken Home Podcast. Have a great night, everybody.